I used to think my life was proof that good things happen to people who work hard. I had a career I loved, a woman I planned to marry, and a future that felt as solid as the buildings I designed. I was wrong. But that morning, standing in my kitchen with coffee in one hand and a wedding checklist in the other, I didn't know that yet. "Ethan, did you call the florist?" Vanessa asked, walking in with her hair still wet from the shower. "This morning," I said. "White roses, like you wanted. The guy said he can do it for the date." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I noticed that. I just didn't think about it." "Good," she said. "That's one less thing to worry about." We had been together for 5 years. Engaged for one. I designed buildings for a living, tall, careful structures that needed a strong foundation or they'd fall apart. I should have paid more attention to the foundation of my own life. "You okay?" I asked. "You seem far away lately." "I'm fine," she said quickly. Too quickly. "Work's just been a lot. You know how it is." I did know how it was. I told myself that's all it was: work, wedding stress, the normal weight of two people trying to build a life together. I had no reason to think otherwise. Not yet. 2 weeks before, Vanessa's cousin Marcus had moved back into town. I'd known Marcus since college. We used to be close, the kind of close where you don't need to explain yourself. He'd been living out of state for work, and when he came back, I was the one who suggested he stay with us until he found his own place. "You sure?" Marcus had asked, standing in our doorway with 2 suitcases and a duffel bag. "I don't want to be in the way." "Your family," I said, and I meant it. "Stay as long as you need." Vanessa hadn't said much when I told her. She'd just nodded and gone back to her phone. I remember thinking that was strange, because she used to talk for 20 minutes about anything involving her family. But I let it go. People get tired. People get busy. I told myself that so many times it started to sound true. Marcus settled in fast. Too fast, maybe. He and Vanessa had always been close as cousins, laughing at old jokes I didn't understand, finishing each other's sentences at dinner. I used to think it was sweet. Now, looking back, I think I was ignoring something my gut already knew. "You two are like siblings," I joked one night, watching them argue over a card game. "We practically grew up together," Vanessa said, not looking at me. "You know that." I did know that, but there was something in the way she said it, flat, careful, like she was reciting a line instead of saying something real. I noticed it, and then I let it slide, the way I let so many things slide that year. Vanessa started canceling our dinners. First it was work, then it was a headache, then it was nothing at all, just a text that said "can't tonight, sorry," with no explanation after. "You've canceled on me 3 times this month," I said one evening, trying to keep my voice light. "I've been stressed, Ethan," she snapped. "Not everything is about you." That stung more than she probably realized. I wasn't trying to make it about me. I was trying to understand what was happening to the woman I used to know, the one who used to leave sticky notes on my mirror just to make me smile before work. "I'm not saying it is," I said. "I just miss you. That's all." She softened. "Just a little. I miss you too. I'm sorry. I'll do better." She didn't do better, but she said the right words, and I wanted so badly to believe them that I did. The night everything cracked open started like any other. I was looking for my gray jacket, the one I only wear to important meetings, and I found it in the hall closet, the one Marcus had been using since he moved in. I checked the pockets out of habit, the way you do when you're picking up dry cleaning or borrowing a coat. That's when I found the receipt. A hotel 2 towns over. A date from the week before. A room booked for 2 nights. I stood there holding that small piece of paper like it might explode in my hand. I hadn't booked a hotel room. I hadn't been anywhere 2 towns over. And Marcus didn't have a reason to be there either. Not that I knew of. My hands felt cold. My chest felt tight, the way it does right before something bad happens, like your body knows before your mind catches up. "Ethan." Vanessa's voice came from the hallway. "What are you doing?" I turned around, the receipt still in my hand. "Whose jacket is this?" "That's Marcus's," she said. "Too fast, too easy." "Why?" I looked down at the paper again. A hotel. 2 nights. A date I couldn't explain. "No reason," I said, folding it and slipping it into my pocket instead of hers. I didn't know what it meant yet. I told myself there had to be an explanation, a work trip, a mix-up, something simple and boring and easy to forget. But some part of me, the part that designs buildings for a living and knows what a crack in the foundation looks like, already understood. This wasn't nothing. This was the beginning of the end, and I just didn't want to see it yet. I told myself the receipt meant nothing. I told myself a lot of things that week. But telling yourself something and believing it are two different battles, and I was losing mine. Vanessa started sleeping with her phone face down on the nightstand. She'd never done that before. When it buzzed, she'd glance at me first, then at the screen, then slide it into her pocket before I could see anything. "Who was that?" I asked one night. "Work," she said. "It's always work." At 10 p.m. "Ethan, do we have to do this every time my phone makes a sound?" I backed off. That's what I did back then. I backed off. I apologized for asking. I made myself smaller so she wouldn't get annoyed. I look back now and wonder why I thought that was love. Nina called me on a Tuesday. She was Vanessa's friend from college, sweet, a little nervous, the kind of person who laughs to fill silence. "Hey, Ethan," she said. "How's the wedding planning going?" "Good," I said. "Slow, but good." "What's up?" There was a pause. Too long for a normal conversation. "Nina, you there?" "Yeah, sorry." Another pause. "Hey, this is random, but did Vanessa tell you about her trip last weekend? The one with her work friends?" "She said she was at a conference," I said. "Why?" "No reason," Nina said. "Way too fast. Just maybe ask her where she really was. That's all. I gotta go, Ethan. Sorry." She hung up before I could ask what she meant. I sat there holding my phone, my stomach twisting into a knot I couldn't untie. Where she really was. Not where she said she was. Where she really was. Vanessa told me Friday night that she had dinner plans with the girls from the office. I nodded, kissed her goodbye, and told her to have fun. Then I got in my car and did something I never thought I'd do. I followed her. She drove past the restaurant she'd named. Then past the one after that. She pulled into a small private place tucked behind a row of shops, the kind of restaurant you only know about if someone tells you where to look. I parked across the street and waited. My hands were shaking on the wheel. 10 minutes later, I saw them through the window. Vanessa, Marcus, sitting close, heads bent toward each other, laughing at something only they understood. I walked in before I could stop myself. "Ethan." Vanessa's face went white. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," I said. "I thought you were with the girls from the office." Marcus and I ran into each other," she said. "We just decided to grab dinner. It's not a big deal." "You told me you'd be somewhere else," I said. "You lied to me." "I didn't lie," she said, her voice climbing. "I just didn't mention it because I knew you'd overreact. And look, here you are, overreacting." Marcus wouldn't look at me. He stared at his plate like it held the answer to a question no one had asked. "Marcus," I said, "you have nothing to say." "It's not what it looks like, man," he said quietly. "We're cousins. You're being paranoid." I wanted to believe them. God, I wanted to believe them so badly that I felt it in my teeth, in the back of my throat, in every place a person holds their hope. "I'm not trying to make this a thing," Vanessa said, softer now, reaching for my hand. "I love you, Ethan. You know that. Please don't let your imagination ruin a nice dinner between family." I looked at her hand in mine. I looked at Marcus, still not meeting my eyes. "Okay," I said. "Okay. I'm sorry. I've been on edge lately." "It's fine," she said, squeezing my fingers. "I get it. Go home. I'll be back soon." I left. I actually left, walked out of that restaurant and drove home alone, arguing with myself the entire way. My gut said one thing. My heart, desperate to protect the life I'd built, said another. I let my heart win. That was my mistake. Grace called around 9 that night. "Hey, stranger," she said. "You've been quiet. Everything okay?" Grace and I have been friends since we were kids. She always knew when something was wrong before I said a word. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." "Ethan." Her voice was gentle but firm. I've known you since we were 10. Try again. I sighed. Vanessa's been different, distant. I don't know. Probably nothing. Do you want it to be nothing? She asked. I want it to be nothing, I admitted. That's not the same thing. I'm here if you need to talk, she said. Anytime. I mean that. I know, I said. Thanks, Grace. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my apartment and realized something simple. Grace hadn't asked me to explain myself. She hadn't made me feel small for having doubts. She'd just listened. I didn't know yet how much that would matter later. Vanessa came home just after midnight. I pretended to be asleep. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, and this time, she didn't wake up fast enough to grab it. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the receipt. Maybe it was Nina's warning. Maybe it was some instinct I'd been ignoring for months. I reached over and picked up her phone. It wasn't locked. Not fully. She'd fallen asleep before setting it down properly, and the screen was still open to a message thread. Marcus. I scrolled up. And up. And up. Messages going back over a year. Photos. Plans to meet. Words I never thought I'd read about my own fiancé and a man I'd call my friend. I miss you already. Tonight was perfect. She still doesn't suspect anything. We just need to be more careful. I love you. I've loved you since before Ethan ever proposed. My hands went numb. The phone nearly slipped from my fingers. A year. Over a year of laughing at dinner, of watching them play cards, of thanking Marcus for keeping Vanessa company when I was busy with work. A year of being the fool in my own home. I set the phone down exactly where I found it. I lay back in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling something inside me crack clean in half. Tomorrow, I told myself. Tomorrow, this ends. I didn't sleep. I lay next to Vanessa until the sun came up, staring at the ceiling, replaying every message I'd read the night before. By the time she stirred awake, I already knew what I had to do. Morning, she mumbled, stretching. You're up early. We need to talk, I said. Something in my voice made her sit up fast. About what? About Marcus, I said. About the messages on your phone. About the year you've spent lying to me. Her face drained of color. Ethan, I can explain. Then explain, I said. I want to hear you say it. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, instead of tears, instead of the apology I half expected, her voice turned sharp. Fine, she said. Yes, Marcus and I have been together. Are you happy now? Hearing her say it out loud still knocked the air out of me, even though I already knew. How long? I asked. Does it matter? How long, Vanessa? Over a year, she snapped. There. Is that what you wanted? I wanted you to love me, I said. Not this. Don't act like you're innocent in this, she said, standing up, her voice rising. You were always working, Ethan. Always at the office. Always designing another building. Always somewhere else. Marcus was there. Marcus noticed me. So this is my fault? I asked, my voice shaking. I'm not saying that, she said, though her tone said otherwise. I'm saying I was lonely. Marcus paid attention to me. He listened. He made me feel seen. When was the last time you really looked at me, Ethan? I was building our future, I said. I was working so we could have a life together. Well, congratulations, she said bitterly. You built a future I didn't want to live in alone. I stood there, stunned. No apology. No shame. Just excuses dressed up as accusations, like somehow her betrayal was a problem I'd created. My phone rang an hour later. Harold Reed. Vanessa's father. Ethan, he said, his voice smooth as always. I heard there was a bit of a disagreement this morning. A disagreement? I repeated. Is that what she called it? Look, son, whatever happened between you two, I think it's best we keep this contained. You understand. The merger between our companies is set to close in a matter of weeks. Any scandal right now could cost both our families a great deal. Your daughter cheated on me for over a year, I said, with her own cousin, and you want me to keep quiet so the merger goes through. I want you to think clearly, Harold said. Emotions fade, Ethan. Business deals like this don't come twice. Vanessa made a mistake. People make mistakes. Don't let pride cost you everything you've built. This isn't pride, I said. This is. Think about it, he cut in. That's all I'm asking. Think about what you're willing to throw away over hurt feelings. He hung up before I could answer. I stood there with the phone in my hand, feeling smaller than I had in years. Part of me actually considered it. That's the part that still shames me when I think back on it. I sat in my car outside my office, imagining a version of this where I just swallowed it, kept the peace, let the wedding happen, let the merger close, let everyone keep their comfortable lives while I quietly buried what I knew. I called my mother because I didn't know who else to call. Ethan. Diane answered. You sound terrible. What happened? I told her everything. The receipt. The restaurant. The messages. Harold's call. He wants you to keep quiet, she said, her voice going cold in a way I rarely heard. For a merger. I don't know what to do, Mom. Yes, you do, she said. You've just been taught your whole life to make yourself small so other people stay comfortable. I raised you better than this, Ethan. You are not responsible for Vanessa's choices, and you are certainly not responsible for Harold's business deal. But if you speak up, you tell the truth, she said. That's it. That's all speaking up means. Let them worry about the consequences of what they did. You worry about respecting yourself. Her words sat heavy in my chest, but they didn't erase the ache. Not yet. Tobias called me that same afternoon, and what he told me finished breaking whatever was left standing. Ethan, we need to talk about the Hartley contract, he said. The one we lost last month. What about it? I found out why we lost it, Tobias said. Someone leaked our proposal details to their competing firm before we even submitted it. I traced the email. It came from Marcus's account. I gripped the phone tighter. Marcus sabotaged us. Twice, actually, Tobias said. The Hartley deal, and the Reynolds project before that. I think he's been doing it for months, Ethan. I don't know why. I did know why. Jealousy. Resentment. Maybe even a twisted kind of revenge for a life he wanted and I had. Thank you for telling me, I said quietly. Are you okay? Tobias asked. You sound off. No, I admitted. I'm not okay, but I will be. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the ring I'd bought Vanessa 2 years ago, the one she wore every single day while lying to my face. I thought about Harold's warning. I thought about Vanessa's excuses. I thought about Marcus sitting across from me at dinner, smiling like nothing was wrong, while quietly working to destroy everything I'd built. Betrayed by my fiancée. Betrayed by my closest friend. Pressured by her father to stay silent for money. Even my own business wasn't safe from the people I trusted most. I put my head in my hands and let myself feel it, every bit of the grief, the humiliation, the anger I'd been swallowing for weeks. But somewhere underneath all that pain, something else was starting to form. Quiet, small, steady. I was done being the fool in my own story. Tomorrow, I would decide exactly what that meant. I woke up with a strange kind of clarity. No shouting, no plan for revenge. Just a decision, quiet and solid, sitting in my chest like a foundation finally poured. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to walk away. I found Vanessa in the kitchen, already dressed for work, acting like the day before hadn't happened. Morning, she said carefully. Are we okay? We're done, I said. She blinked. Ethan, come on. Don't be dramatic. We can work through this. There's nothing to work through, I said. The engagement is over. I'll have my things out by the weekend. You're really doing this, she said, her voice climbing. Over Marcus. We've been together 5 years, Ethan. 5 years, and you're throwing it away because I made one mistake. A year isn't one mistake, I said. It's a choice you made, over and over, for 12 months. I'm not angry anymore, Vanessa. I'm just done. You'll change your mind, she said, crossing her arms. You always come back. You can't just walk away from us. I picked up my jacket from the back of the chair. Watch me. I left before she could say anything else. My hands weren't shaking anymore. That surprised me more than anything. Marcus called that afternoon. I let it ring twice before answering. Ethan, listen, we need to talk about this like adults. We're done talking, I said. And we're done working together. I'm dissolving your contract with my firm effective today. You can't do that over one mistake, Marcus said. Tobias showed me the emails, I said. The Hartley deal. The Reynolds project. You sabotaged both, and I trusted you the entire time. Silence on the other end. You have nothing to say. I asked. It wasn't personal, Marcus said quietly. It was the most personal thing you could have done, I said. Don't call me again. I hung up before he could respond. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than pain. I felt lighter. Grace showed up at my apartment that evening with takeout and 2 bottles of water, like she somehow knew I hadn't eaten. I heard from your mom, she said, setting the bags on the counter. She said you ended things. I did, I said. This morning. How do you feel? I thought about that question longer than I expected to. Empty, I admitted, but not in the way I thought I would. It's more like relief with a hole in the middle of it. That makes sense, Grace said. You lost the life you planned. That's allowed to hurt, even if walking away was right. How are you always so calm about everything? I asked. I'm not calm, she said, smiling faintly. I'm just not the one going through it. It's easier to be steady when it's not your own heart on fire. We ate on my couch, talking about nothing important, and for the first time in weeks I laughed. A real laugh, not the polite kind I gave people who asked if I was okay. Thank you, I said, for being here, for not asking me to explain everything. You don't owe me an explanation, Ethan, Grace said. I'm not going anywhere. Something in the way she said it made me look at her differently, just for a second. I didn't chase the thought. I wasn't ready, but it was there. Vanessa called 4 times that week. I didn't answer any of them. By the 5th call, she left a voicemail. I listened to it once. Ethan, please. This is ridiculous. You're punishing me for being human. Call me back. I know you still love me. You always come back to me. I deleted it without calling back. She texted next. You can't ignore me forever. I didn't respond to that either. A week later, my mother told me Vanessa had shown up at her house, asking if I'd said anything to her about coming to my senses. I told her you seemed more at peace than I've seen you in months, Diane said. She didn't like that answer. She thought I'd crawl back, I said. She's learning that you won't, my mother said. That must be terrifying for her. Word got back to me, through Tobias of all people, that things weren't going well for Vanessa and Marcus. Harold was furious that the affair had become impossible to hide from his business circle, and he blamed Marcus for the damage to the family's reputation just as much as he blamed Vanessa. Marcus told me Harold's barely speaking to either of them, Tobias said. Apparently the merger talks with the other firm are shaky now too. People don't like scandal near their money. Sounds like Karma doesn't need my help, I said. Doesn't look like it, Tobias agreed. How are you holding up? Better, I said, and meant it. Rebuilding, one day at a time. Grace been helping with that, he asked, a little too casually. I didn't answer right away. She's been a good friend. Sure, Tobias said, smiling. A friend. I didn't argue with him. I just let the thought sit there, warm and unfamiliar, taking up a little more space than it had the week before. That night, alone in my apartment, I realized something had shifted. Vanessa was calling and I wasn't answering. Marcus was losing everything he'd betrayed me to protect. Harold's carefully built empire was cracking under the weight of a secret he'd tried to bury for money. I wasn't chasing anyone anymore. I wasn't begging to be loved by people who never valued me in the first place. For the first time since I found that receipt, I felt like the one holding the power in my own life. And it felt like exactly where I belonged. Tobias called me on a Monday morning, his voice tight with something between anger and satisfaction. It's public now, he said. The sabotage. I filed a formal complaint with evidence from the Hartley and Reynolds deals. Marcus's name is all over it. How public? I asked. Industry public, Tobias said. Every firm we work with knows a partner tried to leak confidential bids to competitors. Nobody wants to touch his name now. Or Harold's, by association. I sat with that for a moment. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired, like watching a building collapse that I used to live in. What about the merger? I asked. Dead, Tobias said. The other firm pulled out this morning. Said they didn't want their name near a scandal like this. The very thing Harold had begged me to protect, the thing he wanted me to stay silent for, had fallen apart anyway, not because of anything I did, but because of what Marcus and Vanessa had already set into motion. There was a hearing a week later, a business dispute over the leaked contracts. I wasn't required to attend, but Tobias asked me to be there as a witness to the damages. Judge Ferris looked over the evidence with a flat, unimpressed expression. Mr. Reed, she said to Marcus, confidential bid information from a partnering firm found its way into a competitor's hands, and it traces directly to your email account. Do you have an explanation? It was a personal dispute, Marcus said, not a business matter. Personal disputes don't excuse corporate sabotage, Judge Ferris said. You'll be liable for damages, and I'd strongly advise your legal team to prepare for further consequences. Marcus didn't look at me once during the entire hearing. I didn't need him to. I already had everything I needed. Vanessa showed up at my office 3 days later. My assistant told me she'd been waiting for 20 minutes, refusing to leave. Ethan, she said, standing the moment I walked in. Please, just 5 minutes. I have a meeting, I said. You always have a meeting, she snapped, then caught herself, softening her voice. Please. I miss you. I made a mistake, and I know it was a big one. But we had 5 years, Ethan. Doesn't that count for something? It counted for a lot, I said. That's why it hurts so much. So there's still something there, she said, stepping closer. I know there is. There's nothing there anymore, Vanessa, I said. Not anger, not love, just the truth, finally, out in the open. You don't mean that, she said, her voice cracking. You're just hurt. You'll come around. I already have, I said. That's the part you don't understand. She showed up at my parents' house the following weekend, catching my mother off guard in the driveway. Diane, please, Vanessa said. Talk to him for me. He won't answer my calls. I have talked to him, my mother said calmly. He's happier than I've seen him in years. Happier? Vanessa repeated, like the word confused her. Without me. Vanessa, my mother said, not unkindly, you had 5 years with a man who adored you, and you traded it for secrecy and lies. I think it's time you accepted that some doors close for good. I heard about the conversation later that night, from my mother, sitting at her kitchen table. She looked lost, Diane said, like she genuinely believed you'd wait for her no matter what she did. She always believed that, I said. That's part of why it happened in the first place. Grace and I had dinner most nights that month. Nothing formal, nothing forced, just 2 people who'd known each other since childhood, slowly discovering they knew each other in a new way too. Can I ask you something? I said one evening, pushing my plate aside. Always. Why didn't you ever say anything? Before all this happened, I mean, you knew Vanessa wasn't right for me before I did. Grace considered the question honestly, the way she considered everything. Because it wasn't my place to break something you believed in, she said. I could see the cracks, but you had to see them yourself, or you never would have believed me. That must have been hard, I said, watching from the outside. It was, she admitted, but I'd rather wait and be honest than rush in and lose your trust. Some things are worth being patient for. I reached across the table and took her hand. She didn't pull away. I'm glad you waited, I said. Me too, she said, smiling in a way that felt like sunlight after a long winter. The last time Vanessa contacted me, it was a single text message, sent late at night. I finally understand. I had someone who would have done anything for me, and I threw it away for someone who never really loved me back. I'm sorry, Ethan. I hope you're happy. I read it twice. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel vindicated the way I thought I might. I just felt closure, plain and quiet. I typed one line back. I hope you learn from this. Take care of yourself, Vanessa. Then I set my phone down, walked into the kitchen where Grace was making tea, and let myself be exactly where I wanted to be, present, at peace, and finally, honestly, happy. The gala was the same one Vanessa and I used to attend every year, back when we were the couple everyone whispered about in the best way. Tobias had invited me, half business, half his own quiet way of telling me it was time to walk back into a room I used to be afraid of. "You sure about this?" Grace asked, adjusting her earring in the car mirror. "It's going to be a lot of the same people." "I'm sure," I said. "I'm not the one who should be afraid of that room." She smiled and took my hand. "Then let's go." I felt the whispers before I even saw Vanessa. That's how these things work. The room shifts a little, voices drop, eyes cut sideways. I walked in with Grace on my arm, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like the man everyone pitied. "Ethan." Vanessa's voice found me near the bar. She looked stunning, the way she always did at these events, but there was something brittle underneath it now. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Tobias invited me," I said. "You remember Grace?" Vanessa's eyes moved to Grace like she was seeing her clearly for the first time. "Of course. Grace. It's been a while." "It has," Grace said simply, calm as ever. "Are you too?" Vanessa's voice trailed off, like she couldn't quite finish the sentence. "We're together," I said. "Actually, I'd like everyone to hear it from me directly, since we're all here." I raised my voice just enough for the small crowd near us to catch it, not shouting, not performing, just stating a fact I was proud of. "Grace and I are getting married," I said. "I asked her last week. She said yes." Grace held up her hand, the ring catching the light, and for a moment the entire circle around us went quiet. "Congratulations," Tobias said, grinning like he'd been waiting all night for exactly this moment. Vanessa's smile didn't reach her eyes. "That's wonderful," she said. "I'm happy for you." "Thank you," I said, and I meant it kindly, without any bitterness left in me to spend. Harold approached a few minutes later, his usual polished confidence looking worn at the edges. "Ethan," he said, "congratulations to you and Grace." "Thank you, Harold." "I wanted to say," he continued, lowering his voice, "I regret how I handled things. I was thinking about the merger, not about what was right. That merger's gone now anyway. Cost us more than I ever imagined." "I hope you find your footing again," I said, and I meant that too. I didn't need his downfall to feel like justice. It had happened on its own, the way these things usually do when people build their lives on secrets. "I hope the same for you," Harold said quietly, and walked away without waiting for a response. Vanessa found me once more near the end of the night, when the crowd had thinned and Grace had stepped away to speak with an old friend. "You look happy," Vanessa said. "Genuinely happy. I didn't think you'd get there so fast." "It wasn't fast," I said. "It just looks that way from the outside." "I keep thinking about what I gave up," she said. "You would have done anything for me. I had that, and I traded it for something that turned out to be nothing." "I'm sorry it turned out that way," I said, "but I'm not sorry about how things ended for me." "I know," she said softly. "I just wish I'd understood what I had before it was gone." "Take care of yourself, Vanessa," I said, and this time, walking away didn't feel like loss. It felt like closing a door gently instead of slamming it. Later that night, Grace and I stood on the balcony outside the gala hall, the city lights spread out below us like something I'd designed myself. "Regrets?" Grace asked, leaning against the railing. "None," I said. "Not one. Even after everything." "Especially after everything," I said. "I used to think keeping the peace meant staying quiet, no matter what it cost me. I nearly let Harold talk me into silence. I nearly let Vanessa talk me into forgiveness she didn't deserve. I'm glad I didn't." "What changed?" Grace asked. "You did," I said. "My mother did. Tobias did. Everyone who told me the truth when it would have been easier to let me keep lying to myself." Grace smiled, resting her head against my shoulder. "So what happens now?" I thought about the year behind me, the receipt in that jacket pocket, the messages I never should have had to read, the quiet nights I spent deciding who I wanted to become instead of who I was afraid to lose. "Now," I said, "we build something real. No secrets. No pretending. Just this." "I like the sound of that," Grace said. I looked out over the city, feeling something settle in my chest that had been missing for a long time. Not relief. Not revenge. Just peace, solid and steady, the kind of foundation I finally knew how to build. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I was ready for it.